Yeah, I love it. Well, listen, we're going to get started, and I wanna welcome everyone to the first of many podcasting conversations that we're going to be having. You know, the theme for today is really around understanding some of the advantages, some of the positioning, some of where the focus can be for ex-student athletes, current student athletes who are looking to write the next chapter in their life after sports. So whether you're in sports now or you're 10, 15, 20 years removed like this guy, you know, it's okay. I think this conversation's for everybody. And I wanted to make sure that I just sent out a quick special shout out to Rochester University here in our home state of Michigan. I heard we've got an unbelievable turnout. We've got a few hundred people on with us today. And so I want to send my love and my enthusiasm to Rochester. So welcome to what will be a podcasting conversation over time around the 1% of the 1% in anything you're doing in sports, life, and business. And so we're super excited to be here together today with a few of my dear friends. And so I'm blessed, you know, I'm kind of cheating here in the fact that I chose the panel for the first one. I wanted to bring in somebody from 3 different segments of my personal and professional life. And so today we have Javair Gillett, who represents the NBA and the Houston Rockets, an old roommate from college. Unbelievable guy, was an unbelievable baseball player. He's going to tell you the story. Then after that, during my business life in Chicago, my dear friend Desmond Clark, who had a number of years in the NFL and became a practice partner to me in serving professional athletes, business owners, and CEOs. And then my most recent partner of the last 2 years here in the great state of Michigan, the one and only Mr. Paul Davis. Go Green.
Go White.
Go White. And so, gentlemen, let's get right into this because we've got 1 hour. And so first, let's start off with a few minutes from each of you on just sharing a couple aspects of just your unique story, your relationship with sports, and then tell us about the current chapter you're in your life today.
Yeah, Desmond, why don't you start off?
All right, cool. So I grew up in Lakeland, Florida, a town that's in between Orlando and Tampa, so Central Florida area. Grew up down there, 18 years strong, and still home. But from Lakeland Kathleen High School, I had the opportunity to go to Wake Forest University. And from Wake Forest University, I obviously got drafted in the NFL. So that was my lineage to where I'm at now here in Chicago. But, you know, my relationship with sports, as I tell people when I'm speaking, is I've learned just about all of my lessons of life from playing the game of football. And I owe so much to the game because of the coaches and the great leaders that I played with over time. So we'll get into a little bit more of that as we go along. But I'm ready to share and tell some of those stories about some of the leaders that I was able to play with and some of the lessons that I learned throughout that long lineage from the age of 6 to the age of 34 playing the game of football.
Thanks, Desmond. Let's go by birth order, gentlemen. So next in line is Mr. Javair Gillett.
Yeah, so I grew up in Chicago. As many said, we went to school together at DePaul University. Played baseball through college and, you know, was a multi-sport athlete. So I think just that cross-cultural experiences really helped shape my life. You know, after I hung them up, I got with the Detroit Tigers. I was with them for 14 years in the minor leagues and in the major league position. So I did have a home in Lakeland, Florida for a long time as well, Desmond. So, you know, from there, I've been with the Houston Rockets. This is my 6th season with the Rockets, and we're trying to continue that season and win a championship. So we're in the midst of it. It's a game of adjustments, as you guys all know, and that's, I think, one of the major themes here today, you know, in life. So all of these experiences I've had have really helped shape my life, and I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had and the experiences that I've had thus far.
Thanks, Javair. And one really quick factoid that I have always thought is super amazing and humbling and just makes me proud in a really unique way as a personal friend of Javair's. He was up for strength coach and performance coach of the year twice in Major League Baseball, and in 2017 was voted the top performance and strength coach in the NBA. And so Javair just always setting the standard a little bit higher, and just a great example of what hard work and grit creates. So really proud of you, my friend. Mr. Davis.
Yeah, so born and raised here in Michigan in Rochester. And so I knew Rochester University when it was Rochester College, but made my way to Michigan State, class of 06. Was drafted by Los Angeles Clippers and spent 4 years in the NBA with the Clippers and the Wizards. And then played 2 years in Spain and 4 in Moscow. Accumulated a couple Euro Cup finals appearances. We were able to win it in 2015, but also accumulated 7 different surgeries. And so I had to call it quits in 2016. And then, as Manny mentioned, him and I are now practice partners in the Podium group, and we work with athletes, executives, business owners on their insurance planning, legacy planning, and benefits for their executives. So we'll get into that, but I think one thing I've really learned through sports, and maybe my travels from literally all around the world, is if you have one goal and you've got a team that's concentrated on it, it doesn't matter any kind of background, everybody's able to pull together if you stay on the same page and have the same mindset.
Paul, thanks for sharing that. And so I always think, I don't know why when, looking back at sports, the warm up or the stretch always seemed to be this really like lethargic, somewhat like slow moving entree into either a great practice or an unbelievable game. I don't believe in that. So we're going to go speed round right now. And as I told the 3 gentlemen, these are 3 questions I didn't share with you. And so I just thought this would throw some unique spontaneity into the discussion. We're going to go in reverse order this time, by birth order. Guys, I think you can deduct what that order that is. But 3 questions. First question is, tell the viewers about your greatest childhood achievement and why it was that.
So obviously I'm the youngest on this panel, as you can see, so I'll go. I would say when I was 10 years old, my football career was winning the punt, pass, and kick competition for the state of Michigan. Only time I really went out for any kind of football. My dad and I practiced in the backyard for a month or 2, and then got to do the finals when it was Green Bay against Detroit at the old Silverdome. And ended up winning at 10 years old, and then I officially retired from football.
Javair.
Oh, well, I mean, we can talk a lot about baseball, but I'm going to use my experience in wrestling is an example of, what we're talking about here. And so I never wrestled, went into high school, really primarily as a football player and a baseball player. And I was pretty good at basketball, but I was a little short, chubby kid and got cut from the basketball team because I was way too slow. So when you're 5'6", 200 pounds, it doesn't really work out too well for you in basketball when the competition is getting a little bit better. But I got into wrestling, and, going into freshman year, never experienced weight training and things like that. So to be honest, I just got my butt kicked my freshman year. I won 3 matches, and all 3 of them were from forfeits. So I did not do well my freshman year, and it was a very frustrating year for me, or experience for me. I remember in practice just going as hard as I could, and just, getting taken down by the guy who I was always partnered up with. And it was frustrating, but I stuck with it. And by my senior year, I did really well. And it really shaped my life. It got me in shape to play baseball. It did more for me mentally than physically, but it was a mind-body experience that I had never had before. And it really was a beginning of me pushing myself past my comfort zone. And it was by myself. It was something that I'm very proud of, because I had to work through this by myself. On the wrestling mat, there's no one else to blame. There's no one else to look at, and you're there all alone. So that experience, when you're coming from team sports and then you're going into an individual sport, that was a big adjustment for me, and I came out on top. So it was a wonderful experience, and really it shaped my life. Yeah.
Desmond, round it out. Greatest childhood achievement and why?
It was going into my senior year, the first grading period of my senior year. So I knew that I had the opportunity to go to college, but then this whole grade thing kicked in. You got to have a certain GPA and all of this. And I was always a smart person, but I didn't really apply myself. And when I knew that I had to raise my GPA up to a certain level, the first grading period for my senior year, I had all A's and a B, and I was student of the month. And I had my big picture and my name up in lights around the school. So that was like one of my proudest achievements, because I proved to myself, if I apply myself, that's what could be accomplished.
I love that one went outside of the world of sports. Paul, tell me the book you've read in the last 6 months that everyone needs to read quickly.
The one I'm actually reading now just started, is Principles by Ray Dalio. And it seems like whatever he's doing, I need to do. So I would go pick that one up or get it downloaded to your iPad.
Love it. Javair.
Yeah, so they go hand in hand. There's two. It started out with a book called Living with a SEAL by Jesse Itzler. Jesse's a part owner of the Atlanta Hawks. He brought in a Navy SEAL by the name of David Goggins, and that introduced me to David Goggins, who then I started doing research and got his book on his life, which is called Can't Hurt Me. And it's just, both of them are really from a business side of things and even a sporting side of things as well. It's just how it blends, right? And why are we here today? Blending business and sport. And so really just, finding ways to push yourself past your comfort zone. How can you do that, both physically and mentally, or from a corporate perspective? But yeah, Living with a SEAL by Jesse Itzler, and then David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah, and the latter, one thing I took away from that, I loved, is when you think you've given it all you've got, you've really given it about 40%. And so I'm like, wow. I mean, you talk about like mentally humbling, right?
Yeah.
How many other times in our previous lives we've given up just a little short of the finish line or the micro win. And so what a great lesson from Mr.
Yeah.
Goggins.
Well, we came from explosive sports. So like running long distance, you run and then you're bored and then you just stop. So for me, it was like, it opened my mind. Just that simple fact started, like, running long distance was something that I didn't really like to do. So I'm staying away from it. And it's so common that we stay away from things we don't like to do. So, even just as easy and simple as it is from a physical perspective, is just getting out there and doing something that was so uncomfortable. And it got me to run my first half marathon. So it's just, it's inspirational. So. Yeah,
I love that. Thanks, Javair. And so Desmond, wrap it up.
Yes, and I just read this book this weekend, NCG, The NCG Factor by my good friend Larry Kaufman. And man, you talk about this a lot. Our relationships are like some of the greatest currency that we have. And really knowing how to network and be a giver and be a connector, I mean, that is worth its weight in gold. And this book helps you learn how to do that in a very efficient and effective manner. So especially if you're just coming out of college and need to build a network, this is a book that I'll definitely recommend for a lot of people to read.
Yeah, Desmond, I love that you said that. You know, we talk a lot about the micro wins, and our mutual friend Israel Adonijah is always talking about, you know, the micro win. And when you get the micro win, you know, one day at a time, you got to take a minute to celebrate that and acknowledge that you just won. It builds enthusiasm towards the task and the vision. It builds self-confidence. But what it does is it reinforces that unflinching commitment and grit to seeing the situation through. I love the micro win point, but what you just said there, it makes me think of the macro win. And I often think about what would happen in this world if we would each be approaching each other saying, I'm going to give first. What if two people, every time they engage, had the mindset of give first? Some of the greatest success stories of our lives, I guarantee you, for anyone that's on this call today, they're going to look back and say, you know what? It was explosive. Grant Cardone, it was 10X because we both approached it with the desire, intention to give first. And it was there that we created this explosive outcome. So love that book. Great feedback. Let's wrap up the speed round. One last question. One thing, really quick, in the fewest words as possible, around your mindset. What is the greatest mindset shift you've had in the last 6 weeks, given our new reality? Paul.
Create better systems and processes. Being in my home office allows me to just focus in on how can I make this more efficient for myself and more efficient for anybody I'm talking to, whether it's on the phone or through video.
I love it. And, you know, I don't know how all three of you got a haircut in this quarantine, but you see this guy hasn't. So I hope you stay away from people for 14 days. Javair.
Yeah, you should see the backside. I think I missed the spot, but I would say perspective, right? So I mentioned earlier, game of adjustments. You know, in my field and what I do on a daily basis is very interactive, one-on-one group, you know, interaction live, right? So how can we deliver the best possible service when you don't always have the materials you're used to working with? And so I get it all the time when I'm on the road. Baseball taught me in the minor leagues, you're going to all these different facilities. They don't have the same equipment. They don't have the same things to use. So, you know, how do you adjust and make things work? And this is just a classic example of the game of adjustments and how you can make things work and maximize your productivity, improve your services in the situation we're in.
Awesome. Desmond.
2 words, embrace it, because we're all in it. So if we just go ahead and embrace it, we can't whine about it, embrace it. And what that does is release the creativity and the mind shift of, okay, what can I do now? Instead of thinking about, okay, the situation is not the greatest. So embrace it.
Yeah, and you know what? When you said that, I immediately thought to my amazing Samantha and the fact that every time she comes home from Trader Joe's, she says, you know what bothers me about this mask? That I can't smile at people and they don't know that I'm trying to smile at them and say thank you.
Yeah.
You talk about embracing a situation and having perspective. Yeah, I love that. So listen, we're at 25 after the hour. Folks, we're going to try to keep all of our responses to 2 to 3 minutes apiece because we've got about a half dozen great questions to continue to power through. I hope you're finding some value in these conversations. And so, guys, we're going to mix it up now in terms of order. I'll call your name. But let's start off with the first one. Javair, how did your experiences in sports in the past and today, how have those positioned you to become a better servant leader?
Well, for me, it's been the cross-cultural experiences, you know, have really shaped my life. I mean, if you want to start with baseball, you know, they say baseball is life. Well, why is that? Well, if you look at a baseball player, they fail 70% of the time and they're an all-star. And so you are always having to deal with adversity, you know, at a minor league level, even if a athlete does not go to college, they're thrown right in the fire immediately. And so you have to learn to deal with failure. And, if you look at the difference between NBA and MLB athletes, I think AAU is a good example of, the NBA athlete in the AAU setting is really given, if you're really good, is really coddled and given a lot, right? And then they go to college, and then they're treated very well, and then they get to the pros, and as a rookie, you have a hard time adjusting to the real world. You have to you're not the best anymore, so you have to learn how to deal with some failure, things like that. And from a minor league perspective in baseball, you're thrown in the fire, and you got to make adjustments. By the time you hit the big leagues, you're you've grown into a man. So I think the same thing has happened for me in my life. In those cross-cultural experiences have really helped shape my life. You talk about grit, you talk about dealing with adversity, going through adversity myself, has really helped shape my life and become a better leader because of that. So I don't believe it's perspective, right? I don't look at, it being mistakes, right? I don't make mistakes. It's only learning experiences, right? And so I think all of those things from a cross-cultural perspective has really helped my leadership skills.
Yeah, so many, just so many things you said resonated. Paul, so experiences from sport that have positioned you to become a stronger and better servant leader.
Yeah, no, I think Javair talked a lot about the adversity, and when you're in sports and you're performing and need to perform at the highest level, there really is no time to slow down, because in the NFL, in the NBA, if you slow down or you need to rest, that's all right. Somebody else is coming right behind you to fill your spot. So it's understanding how to adapt to adversity. Don't shy away from it. And it's helped in the transition with everything I went through with my injuries, from the best doctor in the world saying you might play again to winning the Euro Cup championship that next year. In business, when, I've never done anything in a suit besides go to a basketball game and change into a jersey. So it was a new world, and I just needed to dive in. And then I knew everything that I've learned. I've been through, the battles. I've adjusted. I have my work ethic. I have my mentality. That will allow you to accomplish literally anything after sports. It's something that can't be learned in school. It's something that a degree won't help. So we need to make sure that we, harness that and utilize it. And just because, we haven't stepped outside of the sports world does not mean that it's going to take time to adjust. So I really think just the work ethic that you build, and just learning to have those little failures, whether they're in practice or in a game, because you're going to have small failures or big ones in life. But there's a group that keeps going, and then there's a group that doesn't.
Desmond.
Yeah, and specifically talking about leadership, I think the greatest thing that I learned about playing sports is learning emotional intelligence. Before, emotional intelligence was one of those big buzzwords that we use a lot now, because when you play sports, I think we have, as athletes, a distinct advantage over people who did not play sports, because we're around so many different people. We have to understand people's motivations. We have to understand how to work with people to pull from one side of the rope as a team. And those are things that translate well when you go into corporate America, or if you're building your own team some type of way. Understanding people is for me, beyond anything else, is the key to winning, because you don't win by yourself. You win by building great teams. And that's something that you talk about, Manny and Paul and Javair. I'm sorry, I was blanking on your name there. We know that great teams win championships. And even if you are in a individual sports, you have a team behind you that's pushing you as an individual. And the same thing is true in business also. So having that emotional intelligence and learning how to work with different people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, and understanding their motivations, and then incorporating yourself into that so everybody is pulling from the same side. I think that's probably the best thing that I learned by playing sports.
Thanks for sharing that, Desmond. This one I've got specifically for Javair. We've had a couple great conversations in the past around this. I don't know if folks know, but Javair and I are currently collaborating in the Batman cave on a book, which is going to have a lot of imperfections, a lot of mistakes, a lot of failed moments in life, but recognition for a lot of the things that worked. And so, as he said, you know, when you hit 300, you've got a shot at being an all-star and at being in the Hall of Fame. And so, Javair, this one's for you. What's one suggestion, that you would give student athletes today about how they should be investing their time right now to set up their life long-term for success?
Yeah, I would say engage, and you know, with social media now, and all these, I mean, technology is great, right? But I think it is important to get face-to-face, eye-to-eye in those interactions. I was reading an article yesterday in USA Today about Joshua Dobbs, who's a quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and at Tennessee, he was an aerospace engineering major. And so in his off time, right before the pandemic affected all of our lives, he was at NASA doing an externship. And, you know, so this football player sees the big picture, and he's going out and he's putting himself in probably a real uncomfortable position than what he's used to, you know, but it's again, growth mindset, right? And so I think in order, if you truly have a growth mindset, you're looking to engage, put yourself in unfamiliar situations, things that might be outside of your comfort zone. And then through that exploration, you're going to find out so much about yourself and what you really enjoy. And I mean, it's going to lead to success in the future. So even if it's something that I don't think there's really, you know, if you have purpose, you're not wasting your time. So even if you find something that you don't enjoy doing, oh, that's not for me, that's okay. It was a great experience that can transfer. So I think just exploring, engaging, for me, it was those internships at DePaul, where they allowed us to go off campus and do some experiences before we even graduated. That allowed me at 23, 24 years of age to get a full-time job with the Detroit Tigers. If it wasn't for those experiences, I don't get the experiences right out of college. So you got to push yourself. You got to find balance, but you got to push yourself past your comfort zone, and you got to be willing to put in the work.
Javair, thanks for sharing that. Obviously, having been at DePaul together, I remember those moments as well. And I've told the story probably 1,000 times. I remember my winter internship, my senior year, January of 2000. I will forever be grateful to Papa and Mama Law from Tipton, Indiana, for housing me for that internship. But I'm working at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, and I'm in the dungeon. They called it the bullpen, hammering out 200 dials a day. And what do you know, my second week there working for my guy, Rich Hawk, Tony Mandridge comes and sits down right next to me in the cubicle next to me, hammering the phone. Let me just say that our approach to phoning was distinctly different at that time of my career, but one of the greatest memories I have, and something that has always been a special story and just experience for me. So let's pivot. We're going to go to Paul and Desmond with this question. Gents, tell us about, and we'll go to Paul first, tell us about the most significant person in your life that opened up a door for you that today you still reflect on and repeat the story to others as saying, this changed my life.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, it starts with my father, but um, it, I really think it changed for me when when I got to Michigan State and Coach Izzo, um, literally every day for 4 years, he had this intensity directed at me to never let me relax. And middle school and high school sports, it's fun, you're with your friends, but what he saw my potential being is something that I probably didn't realize at the time. But anything, whether it was a drill, whether it was warm up, stretching game, he did not let me give anything less than 100%. So what that did for 4 years, whether somebody is there for a year, 4 years, it prepares you for literally anything after college, after sport. There is nothing that we as athletes won't be able to handle. And I think sometimes if we don't know the business or the industry, or we don't know what's coming, because we're used to a schedule, we know what every single day will be. Sometimes that can be a small fear, but sport and Coach Izzo never letting me relax. Whenever I would raise the bar, then he said, "Okay, now we're going to take it up a little more." That prepared me for anything that I was going to face. And I faced 5 knee surgeries. I faced tearing a muscle every month one season, and I was able to do my rehab. I was able to rest at 100%. I was able to work at 100%. And then at the end, it allowed me to walk off the court and have closure to my career as I wanted to.
Thanks for sharing that, Paul. Something a lot of student athletes and athletes after college could really resonate with. So Desmond, who's that one person?
I thought about this for a long time because I know we're talking to student athletes, and I have a lot of coaches that were big influences and still are big influences. Just spoke to my college coach from Wake Forest, who's asking me to come out and speak to his kids at Stanford. But I said I wouldn't be being authentic if I didn't say my mom, because I think what she did for me and my brothers, and when I thought about it like we were walking down this hallway and there were a bunch of doors on each side of this hallway, and most of those doors were going to lead to something negative. And if she didn't model the right things and have the right mindset and didn't let us open those doors and wasn't the positive influence that she was on us, I think we could have took so many wrong turns and went into so many wrong doors. But what she did for me, she kept me moving down this long hallway until we got to the end of the hallway, and then she allowed me to open my own door into life. And I think those first 18 years that she modeled the right mindset and the right attitude, that was the most critical for me, because now once I got out on my own, I had the right mindset and I had the right attitude to attach myself to the right people in life, like the coaches, like yourself, like people like Paul, and all these great people that I met in so many different arenas, in business, in sports, and just in everyday life. I have to credit that to my mom, because she kind of gave me the outlook of what I need to be focused on through those first 18 years of life that really opened the door for life for me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. And I know that's a really special relationship. Do you want to take a quick minute to tell us about the significance of Tuesdays?
Yeah, so every Tuesday I wear my pink, and I got my pink hoodie over there. I wear a hoodie almost every day now since I'm in the house. But every Tuesday I wear pink because my mom passed on a Tuesday. And it started off as something that I was just doing just between me and her. But once I got to MassMutual over with you in Chicago, people noticed that I wore pink, and then it became a story about Pink Tuesday, which ultimately led to me being on the American Cancer Society board and championing that cause. And really now it's expanded for me, not only winning it for my mom, but for other people who are fighting cancer, who have fought through cancer. And just as important, those people who are caring for people with cancer, because that's a tough job to shoulder, especially if you're doing it by yourself. So anybody with cancer out there, my heart goes out to you. Keep fighting. My mom, she kept fighting to the last day, and one of the more absolutely fabulous, wonderful things that she did for me, she showed me that there's never a bad day, because less than 24 hours from her dying, she was still trying to smile and be in good health. So that was her last lesson to give me as I continued on in life.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that, Desmond. I know that can resonate with so many people, and especially in times like right now when we're dealing with so much physical, emotional, and financial difficulty. I know that a lot of our listeners and viewers can really resonate and connect with that story. And hopefully, if you have the capacity and the desire to do something, kind of pay it forward in your own way to recognize a group or one of so many of these unbelievable causes that are out there. So thanks for sharing that. I thought this was a really good segue, and I want to let our viewers know we're at about 18 minutes on the countdown clock. We're going to go as quick as we can here through 4 to 5 more questions. And so this is a good segue to go with, what's the one thing quickly that you would have done differently as you left sports and gone into the next chapter of your life? And let's start with Javair.
I think what I've learned is have purpose. And so I'll suggest another book. It's called Start With Why, and by Simon Sinek. If I would have read that book when I was 20, oh man. I think just having purpose behind everything that you do. Everyone's got to have that book. I just, especially if you're a young person just trying to get into it, that purpose can lead to better decisions. It can lead to exploring new things. So I think, in short, I think just have purpose, have your why. Awesome.
Paul.
I think, preparing for the next chapter, in an athlete's life, it needs to happen maybe as you approach that as opposed to afterwards. Because for athletes, all of us at some point in our life are going to go through 100%, job termination. So we need to be ready for that, because you need to have closure, but you need to be ready for whatever's next. And you want to keep every single door open. You want to make sure that you're talking to anybody who's an influential leader in your town, because you don't want to jump into something because time's running out, and you need to, athletes, we need to be able to grow. We need to be able to work 24/7 if you want, and really control your destiny. That's something we've been doing our whole lives. So, I would say what I would do over is start to look at what that might be a little earlier, so that not enough, a long time doesn't go in between your last game and trying to figure out what your next, your identity is as an athlete post your career.
Really appreciate that. Desmond, why don't you round it out?
I'll piggyback off of Paul, and I think he was saying a little bit of this. I would focus on networking and building my network more, because when you are an athlete, people want to be around you. They want to hear stories, and they want to be connected with you. I don't think I took the opportunity and ran with it as far as I could have when I was playing in NFL, to build relationships with all of these different people that I had attachments to. So once you get out of the NFL, you kind of lose some of that, because now you're not in the limelight anymore. I would say when you have that shine and you are in the limelight, take advantage of it. Start to build those relationships with people who are trying to build those relationships with you. And I know you have to focus in on what you're doing and have to focus on yourself so you can be at the top of your game and be successful. But take some time to start building out your network while you have the opportunity with all the people who are trying to connect with you.
Awesome. Great way to round it out. And so we've been getting dozens and dozens of questions from folks. And as you see me looking down and looking around at different devices, I'm reading them because I'm trying to be thoughtful in picking good ones out. And so this one hails from the 219. That is right, my hometown. And one of the most amazing families I've ever been around my entire life. And I really use three last names because they're just all together and they're powerful. It's the Adam Karash and Gajewski family. And my lifelong friend Jill Gajewski asked this, and we're going to start with Desmond. Is there a skill or competency that you wish you had had learning or taken classes around at a younger age? Desmond.
Yes, and it's kind of where I'm at right now. Entrepreneurship and understanding everything that goes along with it. I wish somebody would have pulled me and said, hey kid, you have to study entrepreneurship at an early age and then continue to study it throughout your days in high school and college and once you get past college, because being an entrepreneur now, you know, there's so much stuff to learn. And I feel like I didn't start learning this stuff until the age of 38 is when I really jumped out there and had the entrepreneur mindset. So that's something that I wish I would have studied early. And I'll give this tip for anybody who wants this. Harvard, they're giving free courses out right now because of the situation that we're in. You can go to Harvard, free course, and if you want to get certified in entrepreneurship, it's like $199 course that you can go to right now. So if you're interested in that, go to Harvard and check that out.
I love that. Javair.
Well, you know, I think it depends on, you know, the profession you're in or what you're trying to get into. I mean, for me, it has to do with computer science, data science. So to piggyback off of what Paul and Desmond were talking about is just, you know, in the last question, you know, it also is similar to diversity, right? You have to create diversity and what is going to separate you from the field, right? And so in my field, moving from strength and conditioning to sports science, I have become really a data scientist in a way. You have to manage data. If you're in the financials, obviously, you know, that's all about data. So how can you use technology and computers now to maximize your profits, you know, and your and separate you from the field. And I think it has to do with, nowadays, it has to do with technology and computers.
I love that. Thanks for saying that. That's easily on my top 3 list of moments I wish I could turn back time on. Thanks for sharing that, Javair. Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I love, you know, both of those, and I'll throw something kind of in the middle that brings them into, you know, around marketing or branding, but also the psychology of people. So, you know, with all the technology, the data analytics of a consumer, if you're in sales, how to read it, how to be able to adjust and maybe beat another brand there first. So, you know, around marketing ourselves, because unless you're, you know, going into a 9-to-5 where somebody's, you know, telling you what to do every day, entrepreneurs need to market themselves. And it's not just throwing, you know, something on a billboard. I mean, it's not just posting one ad, because everybody's doing that. So how do you read the consumer and in their psychology of what they're thinking, what they're saying? Because there's a lot of information out there every single day. And I think you have like less than a half of a second when somebody's scrolling to, you know, to make an impact. So figure out how to make that impact in less than a second. And I think, you know, a lot goes into that from the marketing, entrepreneurship side of talking to people, and obviously the data analytics that Javair talked about.
Thanks for sharing that. So we're at about 10 minutes to the hour. Javair, I know you're going to have a hard stop right at 12. So let's get into a little bit more speed round. So again, let's try to get 60 seconds or less on these. In one sentence, what's the best advice you have right now for student athletes? Paul.
I'd say never settle. And what that means is Actually, you know what? I've got a better one. You can either play video games with your friends, or your friends can play a video game of you. There's always going to be another party. There's always going to be another time to hang out. So there's only two paths for an athlete. Either you're playing them and watching the TV, or they're playing them and watching you on the TV.
I love that. Javair.
Paul, you might know who Johnny Davis is. He was a former coach in the NBA. Really a mentor to me when I was with the Orlando Magic as an intern. And he told me something. I don't remember anything about strength and conditioning, all that. He said one thing to me that resonates to this day and has really helped shape how I go about my business. And he said, if you want to be the best, you surround yourself around the best. And, whether it has to do with finding a mentor to what I tell these players every day, you need the coaches, you have your coaches, but do you have the dietitian that's going to help nutrition? Do you have your financial advisor like Manny that can help drive you in the right direction there? Do you have a mental performance coach? All of these people help you perform at your best and will help you maximize your productivity and your success. So, there is as Kobe and Michael and all of them are saying, there is an I or there's an E in me. And I think there's, some truth to, really locking in and holding yourself accountable, but at the same time, having the humility to say to yourself, I can't do this on my own. I got to find people around me that are better than me.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Javair. And Desmond, so in one sentence, best advice you have right now for student athletes?
What you do, speaking so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. It's all about execution. It's all about the actions put behind the intentions.
Well, I love it. And I don't know if folks know, but Desmond just dropped an amazing book. I cheated. I got to read it first, but it's amazing. Desmond, what's the name of the book and where can they find it right now?
Oh, got it right here. Principles of Winning. It just came out on April 20th. So you can go to Amazon, look up Principles of Winning, Desmond Clark. You can get it there. I appreciate anybody who will support it. And this book has a lot about what we've been talking about here on this broadcast.
Yeah, I love it. And listen, you know what's super cool? So my man, Ched Miles, he's the one who had the vision for this. I love it. He's such a great visionary and storyteller. He's been an unbelievable partner in my life these last 2 years, and such a gift to not just myself, my family, but our firm and our community. He put this together and he's been launching me messages this entire time. And so I'm seeing names on the call. And so I wanted to give a quick shout out. I see that the Gatch family's on here in the great state of Michigan. And so, hey, want to appreciate you for the support. It's been about 3 years since my family and I arrived in Michigan, and we have so many new great friends. I also see my daughter's softball coach, Scotty Howland, has a relationship with the Detroit Lions and the Detroit Pistons. Easily one of the top coaches I've ever seen around children. And so just a special shout out to Scott in everything he does to impact folks like us when we were young. And the impact he's having on Ava is just unbelievable. And I'm just eternally thankful for that. Let's get another question. What is the one thing you miss the most about your playing days? Desmond, quick.
Being in the locker room, man, it was, that's the only place you can go and call it work. And you get to be a kid. Like, we walked into the locker room in sweatpants and hoodies, and that's how we came to work. And it was just, being a kid all over again every day, and all of the people that were on the team you became brothers with. So it was like having a house full of brothers that you fought with, that you played with, that you just had a good time with. So being in the locker room is the thing that I miss the most.
Love it. Javair.
Yeah, the fraternity that you have with your brothers, but I'm competitive, man. So the competitiveness is that's what I'm always trying to replace, right? I love getting out there and competing. And so just finding ways to replace that.
I love it that you said that. I immediately thought about a few stories that we will not share about our days back in college and how much love we had for each other on the macro, but man, there were a lot of micro moments of pain. And I love you, brother. And it's that level of intensity and competitiveness and really desire to just find ourselves and figure ourselves out at such a young age that I think that's why, you know, I'm always telling people like, man, I'm far from perfect. But look, I'm leading with positivity and enthusiasm because that's my choice and that's what I'm doing. And so far from perfect, but definitely leading with the right mindset and attitude and intensity. And I love that, Javair. Paul, what's the one thing you missed the most quickly? And then we're going to wrap up today.
Yeah, no, I've got to go, with the locker room. And, once you get into college and especially the, professional ranks, it's the one place that you can literally be yourself and have no worries about, what's around you. You are a brand when you walk out of there, and they have different responsibilities, but the locker room, and then also, that hour and a half in the locker room before a game, you can feel the intensity and focus. It's hard to get that anywhere else.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. So folks, listen, to wrap up, this is the first of many to come, and we're going to do an every 2-week rotation. I am super excited for our next panel. It's going to be an all-female panel. And look, I'm not even going to tell you who it is, but by Friday, the information's going to drop, and I'm super excited. One of them, Danielle Martin, was on the call with us and the event with us today, and I'm super pumped to share her story and her insights with the group. Paul, Javair, Desmond, man, y'all know how important you are to me. Special part of my life, special part of the lives around us. And look, I'll summarize how I know these three by sharing 3 quick points. 1, great stories that all start with a great family. Great stories that all start with a great family. And I think of Javair's mom, who I got to know through college, and just what a special woman she is, and just a special story, hailing from the area of Chicago like my brothers and I. Number 2, man, it takes great vision. You got to outwork everyone. Like Mr. Matt Ishbia says, you got to be willing to outwork everyone, and a ton of grit and optimism to see this thing through. And I think that's the common denominator here with the group. And number 3, I think when you do that and you surround yourself with people who you share your vision with and never let you quit on yourself, that's where the 1% of the 1% is created. And it doesn't take a ton of talent. But boy, I'll tell you what, there's no shortcut, even with a ton of talent, to hard work and commitment. And so I love being with the 3 of you today. I want to thank all our listeners and viewers. Super, super thankful that we were able to be together today in the environment that we're in. And so folks, listen, you can find them on social media. You can find them with some clips that we'll send out later. We'll send links to everybody. And so really thankful for everybody that was with us. And again, listen, don't be afraid of doing the hard work. Don't be afraid of doing the hard work. Thanks, guys.